Yeah, I do that all the time. Yeah, I always forget to turn the mic on because I turn it off. So we got a lot to talk about this morning. If you guys want to retweet the scope, we got a lot to talk about Mr. Huber, Mr. John Huber. So if you want to go ahead and retweet that for me, that would be great. I'll give a couple minutes so people can connect. Happy Christmas Eve to everybody. Let me get my coffee here. I got the coffee. Coffee. So I got coffee going. Everybody got their coffee brewing this morning. Get your coffee. Get your coffee, kids. We got a lot to discuss this morning about John Huber and what's going on. Looks like he's not quite the guy people were thinking. So, anyway, here we are. Got my coffee. And got my glasses on this morning. I was doing a bit of reading. A lot of people, do you know who Paul Sperry is? A lot of people out here, do you follow Paul Sperry? He's an award-winning journalist, investigative journalist. He's a pretty good guy. He knows his stuff, and he's a journalist. He's been in the field for a while. So I've been following him, and he's been doing an expose on Mr. John Huber. He knows Tom Fitton from Judicial Watch. He knows a lot of these heavy hitters in Washington, D.C. And if you don't follow him, I suggest you do follow him because you'll learn a lot quick. So he just wrote an article. Found it very interesting. Now I'm going to go ahead and start reading this article to everybody because this is a very interesting article by Mr. Paul Sperry. Like I said, I followed him for a while, and he knows his stuff. So this is how you can separate the fake news from the real news, okay? This is how you do it, guys. All of these guys that are writing about Huber and all of this stuff, you know, they don't know anything. They don't know anything because they have no inside connections to the Department of Justice. They don't know anybody in there. So you see people like, I'm not going to really name names because I don't want to piss off people because, you know, let me just say, they don't have any inside connections. They just make shit up. And you get guys like Paul Sperry, Tom Fitton from Judicial Watch, my buddy Thomas. These guys actually know people, right? So they actually get some intel. They get some, credible sources that can give them the information that they're looking for. While the rest of them are writing fake articles, right? You know, we talk about the age of fake news. The age of fake news and things like that. Well, that's the problem what's going on with conservative journalism, too. I find it on all sides right now. A lot of people don't know anybody on the inside, but this is what's going on, right? So you've got this outlet called the Epoch Times. Epoch Times, they got a bunch of journalists on the Epoch Times that don't even know anybody. They just write these crazy fucking conspiracy theory stories that have no validity on the site. I mean, some of their stories are good, don't get me wrong, but I wouldn't count every story coming out of the Epoch Times as gospel. So, that site kind of has a lot of shit on there that it's neither true nor factual. But here we go. We're going to go into this Paul Sperry story. He's a very good award-winning, like I said, journalist, knows his shit. He's worked for a lot of different media outlets, knows his shit. Yeah, okay. Yes, yep, that's one of them. That's one of them. You hit the nail on the head there, Natty Addy. Yep, that's one of them. But anyway, so here's a piece by Paul Sperry. He owns the site Real Clear Investigations. Very, very good journalist. I find his stuff to be really good. The site is fresh. It's clean. I'm going to actually import this story over to my website, and I'm going to cite Paul Sperry as the source, of course. But here's the story anyway. Let's start reading it, okay? Because I like to read stories and share intel, because this is absolutely great intelligence. If you're going to start separating fact from fiction, this site right here, you can get some really good facts. And I find anything that Tom Fitton aligns himself with is really credible sources. Tom Fitton just doesn't retweet anybody or retweet anything. And neither does Judicial Watch. They're very careful of what they put out for information. So here we go. John Huber has developed almost mythical status among pro-Trump tweeters since former attorney Jeff Sessions directed him to investigate why the FBI spied on Trump aides and whether they protected Hillary Clinton and her foundation over alleged misdeeds. They hoped the Salt Lake City-based prosecutor would aggressively expose the malfeasance that has already led to firings and resignations among the Bureau's top brass. Okay, so it starts off, they're talking about, people who have been fired like Comey, McCabe, Strzok, Page, and all them other guys that have been let go from the FBI. So that's the first part of the story here. And let's keep going. Instead, more than a year since his appointment, Huber's lack of traction on either front is leading many, once hopeful, supporters to dismiss his investigation as a sham, which is pretty much what a lot of us have done. We've pretty much said, oh, man, this guy, he's not doing anything, man. He would have brought something to Grassley. He would have, showed up with at least something. This guy hasn't showed up with a fucking anything, a piece of paper, nothing. But this goes down to what I'm talking about with some of the fake writers out there who have been writing nonsense without any proof. I've said this before. You can't write an article based on no proof. You just can't. It doesn't make sense. And that's what's going on. You got a lot of these guys that are making up fake fucking news. They're as bad as CNN right now. Real Clear Investigations has learned from potential witnesses, their lawyers, and other close to the investigation that Huber has not impaneled a federal grand jury. Huber has not impaneled a federal grand jury to subpoena witnesses or hear any evidence. Aha! So Huber, here's the next part. Huber hasn't impaneled anybody. He hasn't, brought anything before a grand jury. He hasn't done anything. So this guy investigated and he talked to several key witnesses, and there's nothing going on. Like, this guy went around, he's like, I'll figure out if it's going on or not. I'll go talk to all these witnesses and say, hey, have you talked to a grand jury? Have you done anything? Because you're allowed to say whether you're going to a grand jury or not. And see, this is where people, that's what I'm talking about. The fake news on the conservative side, people aren't telling the truth. And it takes somebody like Paul Sperry to come along and actually write an article, an in-depth article, to tell you the key points of what's going on with Huber. Hey, dude, congratulations. At least somebody's doing something. Yeah, well, if you're Schumer, I think it goes on both sides right now. Let's be honest. We have a lot of conservatives that are passing off fake news just like the liberals are. It's becoming a fake news population, man. Where on both sides, they're just throwing out fake news and throwing it at walls and fitting some false narrative, right? Fitting some false narrative to meet their pie hole. That's all it is, right? While the rest of us who do honest journalism, that's why you won't see me tweet a lot of, conspiracy theories and things like that. And I won't try to boost my numbers up by posting fake shit. You just can't do that. So, back to the article. We're going to keep reading here. But that's what's going on. These guys hype up situations. They hype up events. And they lie to their followers to keep their followers engaged. It's not even that they're putting out credible information. They're just lying to you to get you to click their shit and click their links and watch their scopes and, It's what they do, right? They don't put out anything credible. It's all what I call, it's the generation of hope porn, fake news, blah, 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 blah. So let's keep going on the article by Paul here. Real Clear investigate. All right. They are puzzled as to why he has failed to interview the key witnesses, such as disgraced FBI officials. Now, he's not interviewed any of the FBI officials. He hasn't interviewed Peter Strzok. He hasn't interviewed James Comey, Andrew McCabe, Lisa Page. He's interviewed nobody. Nobody has gone before Huber to answer one question, nor anybody at the Department of Justice. That's why I keep telling you, man, well, where's McCabe's charge? Like I said, Mueller has run circles around everybody. yet nobody's charged. You know, and these guys, you know, they keep getting away with it. But let's keep going. Who could shed light on whether the FBI and the Department of Justice officials misused their power when they obtained spy warrants to monitor Trump advisor Carter Page, or whether such officials turned a blind eye to millions of dollars in foreign Clinton Foundation donations, including influencing Clinton's official decisions as Secretary of State, even when whistleblowers have reached out to Huber offering reams of evidence. His office has not followed up, they said. So people have come forward to Huber. People have come forward to Huber and said, I have all this evidence for you. And he's like, yeah, okay, thanks anyway, guys. I don't have time for your evidence. I don't have time for your evidence. I'm so sorry. I just don't have time. So people have come forward to Huber. Huber just doesn't have time to look over the evidence. Let's keep going here. They are puzzled as to why he has failed to interview key witnesses such as disgraced FBI officials. Absolutely amazing. While some witnesses and their attorneys complain he's not doing his jobs, some critics who once had high hopes for Huber now suspect he was never expected to. So a lot of these big guys out there now get it. They figure he was put there to pacify the Trump base. They say Huber's appointment was always political, that the Justice Department had no interest in exposing its own corruption, which it doesn't. And named a longtime department official to mollify Republicans who clamored for an appointment of a special counsel to investigate the FBI and Department of Justice activities under the Obama administration. At the time, people wanted a special counsel, but Jeff Sessions announced he brought in Huber, and people said, okay, we got Huber on it. Former Justice Department prosecutor Victoria Townsend said, but it was a head fake. So this lady, Victoria Townsend comes on and she's like, oh, it's a head fake. Now, who is Victoria Townsend? Well, she used to work at the Department of Justice. She's an attorney. She's an attorney who represented one of the State Department's officials, who was a whistleblower. And she knows her stuff, right? She knows her stuff. You've seen her on Fox News. You've seen her on many other outlets. I'll put her up on screen so people know who she is. She's a heavy hitter, and she used to work in government. So she's not, like, unknown. So I'll put her up here. 1 second while I get her up on the screen. Boom, 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 boom. Because people should know who these key players are, right? So this is Victoria Townsend. I can put her up here for a minute. Let's see. So that's Victoria Townsend. She used to work for Obama's administration at one point. But back to the article here while we're reading it. Now, a private attorney in Washington, Townsend represents a whistleblower in the so-called Uranium One scandal, who says still has not been contacted by Huber. See, Huber's not contacted her. Her client, Doug Campbell, an FBI informant who claims to have evidence that the Clintons helped Russians secure U.S.-based uranium rights in a quid pro quo for large donations to her family's foundation and speaking fees for former President Bill Clinton from the Russian company at the heart of the deal. He should have contacted Doug Campbell within the first 2 months of being assigned by Sessions to look into the 2010 uranium deal, Townsend said. It's a farce, she added. It's an embarrassment how this has been handled. Huber's office would not speak directly to the complaints, but asserted that his inquiry is active and ongoing. 2 other Clinton Foundation whistleblowers reached out numerous times to Huber's office starting in April and offered 6,000 pages of evidence, only to get the silent treatment for several months before finally hearing back after Republican leaders supporting the expert witnesses made a stink about the snub on Fox News. Private financial crimes investigators Lawrence Doyle and John Moynihan, say they got no response after sending evidence of the alleged foundation tax fraud, misappropriation of funds, and pay-to-play schemes to Salt Lake City by mail in April and again in May. After hearing nothing back, they followed up and were told the materials had been lost. So they resent them by FedEx in October. But once again, they heard nothing. Then finally, they received a call on November 30th from Assistant U.S. Attorney there who said he would review the material. It's disappointing it took so long, said Moynihan, a former justice official. Now, Moynihan, he used to work for the Department of Justice, which is I found strikingly funny when I was watching the hearings. Just days earlier, GOP congressional leaders had called Huber to testify and give them a progress report on his work at a hearing originally scheduled for December 5th. Republicans are suspicious of the timing. The hearing was rescheduled without Huber. I find it just very coincidental that on November 30th, a few days before the hearing, after they had been notified they wanted them to come testify, all of a sudden they would start following up, said House Oversight Subcommittee on Government Operations Chairman Mark Meadows. Huber ultimately balked at the invitation. Balked. And if you want to know what balked means, I can give you a rundown on what balked means for you. Balked. Hesitate or be unwilling to accept an idea or an undertaking. So basically, he's unwilling to even talk about what's going on. He doesn't want to. The Clinton Foundation probe isn't the only case where Huber appears to be dragging his feet. So it's not only the Huber case where he's dragging his feet in other areas besides what's going on. So, what do we know so far? Well, we know that Huber hasn't been doing his job. Huber hasn't been getting anything done. It's just absolutely amazing that people aren't catching up on what's going on here. The Department of Justice is trying to cover its ass. We live in a corrupt America right now where, a lot of these entities are corrupt. They just don't want to do their job. They just don't want to do their job. It's crazy. It's crazy that they don't want to do their job. Let's keep going here. Sessions told Congress he also tasked Huber with looking into whether the FBI investigators and Justice Lawyer misled the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act court by making deliberate misrepresentations about evidence presented against Page, whom they targeted as a Russian agent. Allegations included omitting materials, facts, and exploratory evidence undermining their probable cause case. And again, they haven't questioned McCabe, Strzok, Comey, Page, or Sally Yates, all of them guys. They haven't questioned anybody. They haven't questioned any. I mean, Samantha Powers, all of them. They all just walked away. For instance, they never told judges that their application relied heavily on the dossier of the anti-Trump opposition research funded by the Clinton campaign. Recently revealed emails show then FBI Director James Comey raised concerns about the reliability of the unverified dossier before he signed the initial application for the FISA warrant in October of 2016. Page, who denies the allegations, says he has not been contacted by Huber's office. Of course he hasn't, because Huber's not fucking doing anything. Never heard anything from Utah, he said in an interview. In fact, Page added, I have spoken with no federal law enforcement officials this year at all. In addition, Huber has yet to interview a key justice official involved in the surveillance activities. Republicans say demoted justice official Bruce Orr, the dickhead Bruce Orr, you all know who he is, recently testified to Congress that he's not been interviewed by Huber. About his contacts with FBI officials while they were surveilling Trump aides before and after the 2016 presidential election. Nor has his wife Nellie Orr Jesus, who worked on the dossier, used to support wiretap warrants according to his testimony. Meadows sent a letter to Sessions demanding Huber interview Bruce Orr about his connection to the Bureau's process and obtainment of wiretap. The Republican leader says the FBI used Orr as a back channel for dossier information. He followed up with another letter in October asking for an update on Huber's progress. Huber's not telling nobody nothing because he ain't doing nothing. Defenders say what appears to be slow progress may be a function of Huber having to wait on Justice Inspector General Michael Horowitz, who is conducting his own investigation into the Department of Mishandling of the Clinton and Trump probes. They point out that Huber is shadowing Horowitz's slow-moving probe and lending any prosecutorial support he sees fit to provide. Inspector Generals do not have the power to subpoena outside witnesses or compel testimony or convene grand juries and seek indictments. Let me say this again for everybody. Inspector Generals do not have the power to subpoena outside witnesses and compel testimony or convene grand juries and seek indictments. That means Huber cannot indict a pickle. Huber cannot indict a pickle. I said this all along, too. I've done many scopes about Huber, what powers he possesses and what powers he doesn't. And the one power he does not possess is to be able to prosecute people. He doesn't have that power. Not while he's working under Horowitz. I've said it time and time again. I've said it time and time again. Why don't people listen? I don't know why, but let's keep reading this great article here. Let's keep reading it, because it's a good article. I am surprised by witnesses saying that they have not been contacted, and there has been no public indication of his use of grand juries or other powers, said George Washington University law professor Jonathan Turley, who thought appointing Huber instead of a special counsel would bring faster results. But that may reflect a priority given to the investigation by Horowitz, because he had the experience and the evidence going into the investigation. He also noted Huber may be avoiding overlap with Horowitz's lines of inquiry. Some witnesses already given statements to other investigators, and there may be less of a need for re-interviews, Turley said. However, neither Page nor Orr have heard from investigators from Horowitz's office either. So neither Michael Horowitz or John Huber have questioned Page or Bruce Orr. They just don't want to. The lack of movement by the Inspector General surprises his colleagues. So, like I said, Horowitz or Huber hasn't questioned Bruce Orr or Nellie Orr at all. None. Zip. Boom. Michael Horowitz assured me last summer he would have additional reports, including regarding the alleged FISA abuses, but there's still no sign of them, former State Department Inspector General Howard Krongard said. I'm disappointed, he added. I don't know what's holding these things up. Horowitz's office declined to comment, but Huber insisted he's still conducting his inquiry. Mr. Huber was asked to evaluate certain issues and report directly to the Attorney General and the Deputy Attorney General as appropriate. Melody Rydick, spokesman for the U.S. Attorney's Office in Salt Lake City, told RCI his review is ongoing. Asked why key figures have gone unquestioned and what areas of the investigation he has pursued, she said it would be inappropriate for us to comment on the scope of the findings of his review. Rydick also declined to provide details about the size of Huber's team and budget, though he is said to marshal several senior federal prosecutors. Huber's appointment came late last year after chairman of the Judiciary Committees on the Hill repeatedly called for a second special counsel to investigate Uranium One and alleged surveillance abuses. Sessions said he designated Huber in November of 2017 to look in matters and see if one was necessary. In the March 29th letter to the GOP congressional leaders, Sessions said he was confident Huber would conduct a full and complete and objective evaluation on these matters. Again, Huber would conduct a full, complete, and objective evaluation. It's a book report of these matters. He pointed to his skills as a prosecutor and to his 2,000 miles from Washington, where he could operate far removed from Beltway politics and the conflicts. But critics say Huber is in fact a typical government insider, an Obama holdover, who was also very close to Sessions. Huber previously led the Attorney General's offices of National Security Section in Washington. No. Huber previously led the Attorney General's office, National Security Section in Washington. Now, who actually worked over there? Liaison. Who was over there as a liaison, ladies and gentlemen? For $20 this morning and $20 in imaginary cash. Who worked over in that section as a liaison? If you can tell me this morning in the scope, I will give you a golden star. Can you tell me who worked over there? The National Security Section. Who worked over there? Who did work over there? Come on, guys. You can do it. I have full faith in you. Somebody important worked over there. Are you ready? I'm gonna hit you with it. You ready? Andrew McCabe. Andrew McCabe worked in the same section. Just saying. Just Andrew McCabe worked in the same section, just so you know. Just so you know. So that means John Huber and Andrew McCabe have a prior relationship. A prior relationship. See how incestuous this is? Very incestuous. Crazy. Anyway, let's keep going. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. But critics... Alright, let's see. Make sure I'm going over. But critics say Huber, in fact, is a typical government insider, like I said. Crazy stuff. Worked for the National Security Section. Washington was an executive assistant attorney general, and some question his chops as a prosecutor, citing several bungled white-collar and public corruption cases that his office opened in Utah, though others are quick to credit Huber with recent reductions in violent crime in the state. Well, I think you can thank Trump for that. He's an establishment Justice Department career person who's not going to take any strong actions against what went on at the FBI and Department of Justice. Former Justice prosecutor Larry Klayman said. Larry Klayman, he used to work at the Department of Justice. Townsend noted an inherent conflict in Huber reporting his findings to Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, who signed one of the warrants renewals for wiretap in Carter Page. Others note that Huber may have a local conflict in the Uranium One matter, since the Russian deal involved Russian mining interests that are located in that state. What? So are you telling me he's in the state where the mining was going on, where there might be special interests that they have to look out for? No way. You can't. Oh my God. No way. Come on. Rod signed one of the FISA applications and potentially a co-conspirator in the FISA abuse. Why would Huber report anything back to him? That's embarrassing on the FISA front. It makes no sense, she said. The whole thing is corrupt and cries out for a special counsel. Here we go. We're getting to the heart of the matter. We're getting close. Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton, y'all know who Tom is, agreed, arguing the FBI and Justice can't be expected to investigate themselves, even with an outside Beltway prosecutor leading the investigation. Huber was a distraction to ease the pressure for a second special counsel, he said, adding that Sessions used sleight of hand in crafting his letter to Congress. Technically, he explained, Huber had a mandate from Sessions only to investigate the investigations, not the underlying allegations. let's do this again. And Tom Fitton gets what I've been saying all along, because he's a high-ranking lawyer, and Tom Fitton knows his shit. Huber had a mandate from Sessions only to investigate the investigations. I'm going to draw and strike this up here for you one more time. I'm going to draw and strike it up one more time for you. Here we go. Huber had a mandate for Sessions only to investigate the investigations, not the underlying allegations. Huber wasn't tapped to investigate anything, Tom Fitton said. He was tasked to investigate whether to investigate. Fitton said he intends to FOIA Justice for the regular updates that Sessions said he was getting from Huber. Once Democrats take control of the House, they will have little interest on pursuing Huber to keep them in the loop on what the Obama-era scandals did. That leaves us to the Senate. While the Senate Judiciary Committee told RCI it has not received any updates from Huber whatsoever, or the Justice Department about his work, it plans to continue its oversight as Senator Lindsey Graham takes the gavel from longtime chairman Chuck Grassley. There's no imminent plan for Huber to testify, said committee spokesman George Hartman, but Senator Grassley and Graham have worked closely to oversight issues over the last 2 years, and I wouldn't expect either of them to forget about it. So, what did we learn today? Yeah, nothing. Nothing's going on. Nothing. So let's draw and strike this up one more time for you. Huber is only investigating an investigation. Huber is only investigating an investigation. Zero, where's your suit and tie? I'm a regular working man, but I have a suit and tie. I'd put it on, but I'm not going to sit at my desk in a suit and tie. Just to, that's not what this show is about. But anyway, so we've gone over all the information from Paul, and you can totally logically come to your own conclusion that Huber's not doing anything. He's not doing anything. And this is what I'm telling people. You got to be able to, tell the facts from the fiction. The facts from the fiction. And a lot of this has to do with, people not following through or looking things up, and, absolutely, it's crazy, and people don't get it, I have nothing against General Mattis. I wish him the best in his retirement, man. I don't ever pick on any of these generals or anything like that. I think it's un-American, and I think it's just because somebody's leaving the Trump admin doesn't mean they're a bad guy. It just means they're retiring. I don't do that. I think that's ridiculous. But, what did we learn today? What did we learn? Paul Sperry, he did a lot of work on this article. And I think we learned a lot of truths. And that's what I'm talking about. A lot of these other people don't know what they're talking about. They mislead their followers, they lie to their followers, and they don't follow through with looking into certain things. I, on the other hand, I look at everything. And I will take Tom Fitton's word and Paul Sperry's word over any pundit that doesn't have any Washington, D.C. contacts, like people like Draw and Strike and people like that. They don't have any contacts. They're writing things out of thin air. They're guessing what is going on. They don't have a clue to what's going on in Washington, D.C., where Tom Fitton, Paul Sperry, and other guys are on the ground. They got boots on the ground. They're in contact with people. They know people. So, whose word are you going to take for it? Draw and Clown or Tom Fitton? Draw and Clown or Tom Fitton? That's why I can't read Draw and Clown's fucking journalistic approaches anymore. I just quit reading his shit because he doesn't look at the full picture. He has such a hard-on for Jeff Sessions and Huber that he refuses to look at, what is going on. Most people who are on the, dude, you're out of here. You say goodbye to the room. I don't like people who come in here and troll. That's not what this is about. I throw your ass right out of here. So get ready. You're on the next train out there, guy. Guy. You're out of here, guy. Say goodbye to the room, guy. This ain't, this ain't the come in and troll us.
Want to retweet the scope?
Here we go.
We got a lot.
So you can remove yourself, Mr. Plumber, or I'm gonna kick you out. Don't troll in here. Don't troll, please. Thank you. No trolling. No trolling. But yeah, I think we owe it to ourselves to look at all of the evidence that's out there, and don't get down, Roy. Don't get down on yourself. Don't get, Roy. You can only look at the information that's out there. You can only look at what's being, passed around. There's no reason to get, It wasn't you, Roy. I'm sorry. I'm talking to the other troll. I got the wrong guy. I'm sorry. It wasn't Roy, guys. I get so many trolls in here, bro. I can't keep up with them. I get so many trolls. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say your name. That was my bad. But anyway, the fucking trolls, they're relentless. They're relentless. You can't get rid of them, Roy. But anyway, so we have to look at all the evidence, right? We have to look at all of the evidence. You just can't look at one article and say, oh, that's a fact. Oh, yeah, that's a great fact. And that's what I keep saying to people. And that's what makes my show a lot different, I think, is because I look at everything. I don't look at just one person's, what they're saying. And a lot of people will take, documents and they'll put a box around a little part of it and they'll cut the paragraph out. They'll cut it out. And they'll highlight a certain section of a paragraph, but in the next 4 paragraphs, it debunks what that paragraph said. So they'll take articles and things like that, and they'll chop them up to meet their narrative that they're tweeting out. Right? That's the newest shtick too, by the way, is chopping up real information, and and give you just a little piece of that information, but they'll leave out the rest. And that's what I don't like about the pundits right now, is that they're not giving you everything. Now, what I just did with Paul Sperry's article is I read it from start to finish. I'm not going to give you just a tidbit here and a tidbit there. I give you everything. I give you the whole article, full in its context. And I think a lot of pundits need to start doing that, because they're misleading people, they're not telling you the truth, and they're absolutely just, it's absolutely insane what is going on around Twitter right now. So we must, if we're going to start quoting articles and we're going to start quoting people what they're saying, you've got to look at the whole article, not just what fits your narrative or what's going to fit in your box. You got to find it all. And that's what I do. And I'm telling you, I will take Tom Fitton's word over most pundits' words every day of the week. And you guys know Tom Fitton. He's been around for a long time. And he knows his shit. So, and a lot of this falls on, a lot of the misinformation, or the misinformation campaigns, I like to call it. Yeah, Paul Sperry is really legit. I love his articles. I love his journalism. He's a very good guy. But a lot of this falls back on the misinformation. The misinformation that's out there. There's so much of it. Can I ask you a private question? Yes, you may. What is your question? What is your question? I don't mind questions either. Well, I think that's it too. People are lazy. They don't like to verify information. A lot of times that's what happens. People won't verify. They won't double look into things. They'll do things that just are stupid. But what is your question, Roy? Mr. Plumber. Yeah, Fitton, hey, he's a godsend to the Republican Party. He is. He's definitely a godsend. I'm waiting for Mr. Plumber's question. But people need to, well, not research for themselves, but they need to, well, yeah, I guess you've got to be able to look in other places for your research. I mean, you just can't go to one place in research. I think it's good to get your stuff from all over the place. I mean, that's what I keep telling people. By all means, like I always tell my followers, and this is one of the key things and why people keep coming back, is that to do a scope on your desktop, how do you do it? You can use several different programs. You can use OBS. You can use a program called XSplit. There's another one called vMix. And it all depends where you want to go out to. If you're just doing one platform such as Periscope, all you need to do is download probably OBS will get you started. Or you can just use your mobile phone and go to Periscope and then go live. I mean, it's pretty easy. Going live now is just a click of a button on a mobile phone, so it's not hard. So if you have Periscope installed, you just hit the little TV button and you can go live within seconds. So that answers your question. But I always tell my followers, like I was talking about, get your information from everywhere. Just don't get it from me. I say this all the time to people. That's one of the biggest things, is what I've always told people. You know, whether you follow this Q stuff or you follow, get it from everywhere. You know, don't just say, this is where I'm getting my information, and this is all factual, and this is all real, and this is all da-da-da-da-da. Because it's not, all right? So you have to use your critical thinking. You've got to go all over the place. Don't be a baby bird out there sitting on the couch that's getting force-fed your information, because you won't get the good information that you need. Confused about Turkey going after ISIS. Aren't they on the same team? No, they're not. No, they're not. Let Turkey handle ISIS. Like Trump said, they're the neighbors, right? Turkey is the neighbors to Syria. And they have an army. They have a military. If they can clean the horse shit up in Syria, let them do it. If we stop arming all these rebels in Syria, Assad will take his country back and they'll get back to normal. It's better to have a dictator than have 20 warring tribes in a country. Trump gets that. Look what happened with Iraq. Look what happened with Iraq, and look what happened with Afghanistan. When we dismantled those two governments, it left tribes, warring tribes, right? That all were seeking power. And I don't think Trump wants that. Trump doesn't want to have another disabled country. Every time we topple a regime, we end up occupying it for 20 years. And let me tell you something. We do not want to occupy Syria. It's an endless war in Syria. They've been fighting for centuries. Leave Syria to frick alone if you're smart, if you want to keep your out of there. It's time we stop fighting all these stupid wars, man. We've got to stop fighting all these stupid wars. And the only way to do that is if we stop spending the money in these foreign shitholes. Syria will figure itself out. Syria will work itself out. We don't need boots in there to do that. We have to stop that. The Middle East is a problem that needs to be solved by the Middle East. The West is not going to solve the Middle Eastern problems. You know, that's the problem there, is that, you know, people are starting to get that we can't figure out the Middle East's problem. It's their hemisphere. So they need to make their own coalition and clean it up if they want a better tomorrow. The West isn't going to be able to do that for them. So if they're serious about wanting to get rid of jihadists and terrorists and, you know, these Taliban bastards and the Al-Qaeda bastards and all these other offshoots, they'll do what we used to do in the old West back in the day. You know, people like Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday and other people. They'll make a posse of their allies, and they'll mount up and they'll just go and do what they did back in the Wyatt Earp days. You know, when we cleaned up America, when we had all the gangs of the West, We didn't take them to trial. People didn't go to court. They didn't go before a grand jury. They got on their horses. They hunted them down. And they ended them. And that's what they need to do with the terrorists. But the Muslims have to kill them themselves, right? It's their war. If they don't want their shit blowing up, they'll take care of it. Now, here's the flip side to that coin, and it sucks, but if they touch American soil or Western soil, that country where these terrorists came out of, deserve to get some bombs dropped on it. No more troops in there. Just drop a bomb every time it happens. Sooner or later, the Muslims will come together and be like, why do they keep dropping bombs on my country? They'll figure it out. They'll be like, well, if we clean this mess up, they'll stop dropping the bombs. Hey, that's hey, sometimes you got to do what you got to do. But that should be the only point we make in the Middle East. Don't attack us. We won't attack you. And they'll get it after a while. Drones, whatever it takes, The time for fighting these global wars has got to end. It's killing our people and it's killing their people. And don't think the Muslims haven't suffered. Look at Yemen, man. All those children in Yemen, thousands of them. People talk about, problems with American children. Those poor Yemen children. Oh my God, don't even look at it. It's absolutely heartbreaking what's going on with those kids over there. They look like something out of Africa. I don't know if people remember the famine in Africa in the 80s. They were all over the news with the bloated bellies and the skinny kids. These Muslim children look like that. Like they're starving to death. Absolutely crazy. But anyway, I didn't want to get off on the subject that I was talking about. But I'm going to end the scope here because I'm going to keep it on Paul Sperry. And I want to thank everybody for coming in today. I'm going to start doing these informational scopes on articles and things we read. And as we go along, I'll start taking calls where we can talk about the articles that I've read and what I'm giving you for information. And I tweeted out the article today. I retweeted. Tom Fenton actually tweeted it out. That way you can go source everything I said too, right? You can absolutely go source everything I say, which is good, right? It's always good to have a source. So I wish everybody a Merry Christmas Eve. I might be on tonight. We'll see. It all depends what the lady wants to do. And I wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a safe Christmas Eve. And do not drink and drive. Call a cab. Get a ride. Call a friend. I want you all back here tomorrow. All right? God bless you. Goodbye.